Welcome back to another episode of the Decision Hour. I'm your host, Adam Bird. Folks, I've got a great episode lined up for you today. This gentleman here has been on the country music scene, hit the country music scene sometime in the mid-2000s, and then life threw a curve, and he's kind of making a comeback here. He's making a big comeback here. And the cool thing about this is he was also raised in a Navy family. So he's part of the community, the heroes community that we have here. And there's so much more we're going to learn about this gentleman. My new friend. I've been talking to him now for nearly 20 minutes. It's offline, and we're like, hey, we really need to hit the record button by now, man. This is great. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Ansel Brown, my friend.
How's it going, man? I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Let's dive right into this, man. You got a music career. You've been away from the country music scene for a little more than a decade now, right?
Yeah.
Why now? What's the deal with the comeback, and why you got correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a single coming out here in just a few days. Whiskey Makes Her Miss Me.
Yep, the whiskey makes her miss me.
The whiskey makes the whiskey makes her. What? So talk to us about that. Why the comeback now, and why this song? What led this to happen?
Well, the song is a story unto itself, because I've been through the ringer in life. Just let me put it that way. I've had several bites taken out of me over the last 11 years, which a lot of people, that happens to.
Yeah.
And, so I really thought I was done with music. Honestly, I was building my agency. I was dealing with some of the hard things that hit me. And, in the middle of all that, I got remarried and had a child named Sophia. And I started to think, I really, like, the first time I felt like my family was kind of disconnected from me in the music, kind of like being in the military. Right. You've got your military role and you go on your missions, you go, whatever, if you're in the Navy, like my dad was, you go out on a ship for 3 months or whatever it is. And it kind of felt the same way in my music career, in the sense that, I was doing it, but my family was over here, mm-hmm. and they were protected, and I was over here. And so I started hitting me as Sophia started growing. I'm like, she's really creative. I mean, we have a YouTube channel together that she pretty much made me start. Just don't hold it against me. If you see anything that embarrasses me, that's just because I'm a dad. And I started thinking, she never really got to see me as a singer.
Yeah.
And it just really started hitting me that I really I want to do this and have her involved in it some way. I don't know how that'll be, because she can sing,
right?
But it really, that kind of was the catalyst to me wanting to do it, but wanting to do it differently this time by including my family as much as I can. I'm older now. I'm wiser now. I felt like going through the music industry the first time was like going through a dark room and feeling your way through the room.
Yeah.
I didn't have night vision or anything like that. And this time I feel like the light's on. Like I've kind of turned some of the industry upside down the first time, and I feel like I really know what I'm doing this time. So it feels really good to come back now.
Now, you mentioned you're having your family involved this time, and that connection. Dive deeper into that. So for those that haven't been in the music industry or anything like that, haven't toured, haven't done songs, like, I understand. I like the analogy that you use, like, mission, and then your family's over here, and there's a disconnect. But now you're trying to bring the two together and connect it. How are you doing that exactly?
Well, I don't know exactly how it's going to work out, but for now, like if I do a show, and so I'm getting ready to co-headline or be one of the headline event or acts at the City of Pittsburgh's annual fireworks blast that they do. It's called Steel City Blast. And, I'm bringing my family with me. They're going to be involved in the process. They'll be with me at the hotel. They'll be with me at the show, because I want them to experience what I what I got to experience the first time, because I feel like my older kids kind of missed out on that because of me. I didn't really take that into account, because in the moment you're just going. And as you know, time just flies. Like you can't
turn it back.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about kids earlier, they grow so fast. And then before you know it, they're out on their own and they're like, Dad, but why didn't I get to do that? Right. Like, well, I just wasn't smart enough.
Right. It's funny. You're kind of, it's a learning process. They're learning to be kids and you're learning to be a dad, at least with the older ones. And now, fortunately, with your little one, you've already experienced a lot of that,
And I still make mistakes, right? I still don't do obviously I don't do everything right. You just watch some of my Seriously Sophia videos and you'll see how much I mess up. But
and folks, we're going to have the link to that in the show notes below. So don't
hold it against me though. Cause just think of me as just a dad. And when you watch that, I'm not anybody else. So, not even Ansel, I'm just a dad.
But that's the cool thing about it. So I got to ask, The Whiskey Makes Her Miss Me, that's the single. So I'm assuming there's an album behind this that's coming. What can you?
Yeah,
is there?
I had 15 songs, and I decided, just in the process of building up to getting ready to release it, I decided that I wanted to break it into 2 EPs. So the first EP, which is what the whiskey is on, that's called The Rise. And this all relates to my NASA background. So there is a story behind why I'm naming what I'm naming. And in this case, The Rise, which is me kind of coming back and relaunching my music career. And these were the kind of the first set of songs that I felt connected to in terms of this first EP. So that's why they're on the EP. There's no like secret messages or anything like that. no Morse code, mission specific stuff in it, but it is a collection of songs that I really, hold close to my heart. Yeah. And I felt like they were good partners for a relaunch. Then there'll be a second EP. And in fact, just so you know, one of the songs on this first EP is called We Make America Run, which pays homage to anybody that's blue collar, anybody that serves, anybody that teaches, anybody. And it's a working man's, working woman's song. And that's what Pittsburgh actually heard through a beer company called Duquesne Beer. And they called me right away and they were like, I wasn't planning to get any headlining, it takes, some of these places book out a year.
Yeah.
So I really wasn't expecting to do a lot of performing this summer. It was more about launching, getting my music on radio, on streaming.
Yeah.
And they called because they heard that song.
Nice. Nice.
And 2 weeks later, I was signed to go and do a co-headline. I'm not the headliner. I'm a co-headliner. There's another national band that's a part of this, but they're treating me amazingly. It's an amazing city. And I want to be a part of their heritage, in terms of my music. So I'm going to build a good relationship with the city of Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh,
and they're in my song too. The Pittsburgh Steelers are.
Pittsburgh is a fun town, man. We're not far. I'm not far from there.
So
may have to. I can already see our paths crossing here very, very soon.
Oh yeah, that's awesome, man. But
so when you say, I got a question. EP, what is that? What's the lingo? What does that mean?
I just call it an EP. I can't remember what it stands for. We have to look it up because I don't know. I've never done an EP before, to be honest.
The album is called Gravity, correct?
The full album will be called Gravity.
Okay, and so there's 2 parts to it.
Part 1 and part 2.
Part 1 and part 2 of Gravity. Now, for those that are listening right now, and they want to either hear your songs or learn more about you, do you have a website? Let's give them that information right now so we can.
Yeah, definitely. AnselBrown.com is my website. Yep. That's pretty simple. And you can actually listen to songs right on there, and you can download. A couple of songs are free on there that you can download if you just give me your email address. I think that's the requirement.
Okay.
And then any streaming platform will carry Ansel Brown songs.
Nice.
So my old stuff, nothing new right now until Thursday night at midnight.
June 13th. June 13th, folks. That's a couple days away.
Yep. 12. In fact, we're doing a live. I'd love to have you drop in on the
Yeah.
live if you want to, and let you kind of market your show here, and we can talk about whiskey again. And but I'll be doing a live remote from one of my sponsors called Hot Shots in Mooresville, North Carolina.
Nice.
And we'll be including the TikTok crowd, hopefully the YouTube crowd and the Facebook crowd, and maybe the X crowd.
Nice.
And just have a fun time getting ready for the actual launch of my first single in 11 years
This
called The
is
Whiskey Makes Her
great,
Miss Me.
man. This is so
So
great.
very excited about it, man. I'm like, but the let me get back to the EPs real quick.
Yeah.
So you have The Rise, and that's 7 songs. And then we've got another EP, which will have hopefully two radio singles out of that as well. I've got what I consider radio singles on the first EP. The first one is The Whiskey Makes Her Miss Me. The second one is We Make America Run, which is what Pittsburgh heard.
Yeah.
And then the second EP is Falling Into Place, because once you rise, you got to find your place again. And so this is NASA stuff. Sorry, I've been connected with NASA.
It's funny that you're putting it this way, because it's like it's very thought out on the process, and you look at this as like is it safe to say you're talking about your life over the last?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with my life, my mistakes, my wins, my losses, all that kind of stuff. And when you rise back, you break free from gravity.
Yeah.
You got to settle into something. And so what I consider the second EP, the second part to the album, is just falling back into who I am. And I've been away from me for a long time. This is getting back to who I am. And then the Gravity album, it won't necessarily be part 1 and part 2 combined to make the full album,
right?
Because what we might end up doing is find a couple of songs that we feel like need to be included in the final work.
Oh yeah.
And then there may be a couple of deletions from EP1 and EP2 that don't make the final album. So there is some strategy that will go into the final album to make it a little bit more unique than just part 1 and part 2 put together. And I don't know if anybody else does that, but I'm doing it. I don't really have I don't go by the rules anyway. So,
honestly, that was my next question that I had for you was, country music is evolved over the last decade plus, or since you broke out, and how do you feel about your sound now compared to then, the messaging, and how do you feel like it fits in today's landscape of what's going on in country music?
Man, country, like, to me, country is just cool. I mean, it morphs and it, ebbs and flows into different styles. My favorite is the 90s. Honestly, that's kind of where I fell in love with country music, because I used to be like in Christian music and worship and things like that. And I really just kind of fell in love with, the voices that I heard in the 90s. And so in the 2000s, when I got into it, that was kind of my influence, and it still is.
Yeah.
You've got the hip hop side of things that has really kind of, taken country kind of mainstream, in a way that maybe it hadn't before. And I am involved with a hip hop artist named Von Bars in Charlotte that we're coming out with a song together called Queen City Rodeo. So I'm doing some of the stuff that's kind of popular or has been popular the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, this is still me. It's my voice. It's the voice that I've always had. It's just more refined now, I think.
Nice.
And I think my song selection is a little bit different now than it would have been in the beginning. And so yeah, this time it's my personal story, and it's who I am, and I think people will like it and connect to it, and that's really what I want. The connection part is the most important part.
So you're talking about your life, and I'd like to kind of transition into that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You were on a major career, kind of upswing, and then life kind of threw a curve at you with a condition. You talked about, you were married once before. How did that process of those moments, collectively, and what pulled you through all of them?
Well, God first. I never lost my faith.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, God really worked on me. I don't know, that you can just kind of throw your hands up and be like, okay, well, this is done,
Yeah.
whatever. But I really felt like God was like, man, you're not done. It's just, you're learning right now. You're learning. And so 11 years of learning, man, as it was really what it was, learning to be a dad again, learning to deal with a heart condition and get through that without, losing my mind over it, and dealing with a child that went through some very tough things with, our family, and learning to love him all over again. And, um, you know, forgiving is a big part of that. And I don't want to get into the details of that, but it was a shocking experience to go through for us. And it could have easily, with everything kind of building in a negative way,
Yeah.
it could have easily just thrown me off the deep end, but God was there the whole time. My family has been incredibly supportive of my issues that I've had. And I feel like, I like to say, life took a few bites out of me, but now I'm getting ready to bite back.
I love it. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
And folks, those of you that are listening, he's biting back with full
I'm biting
force.
back.
Listen, if you're listening to this, it means you're already online. Okay? Just open up another browser. Go to anselbrown.com, ANSELBROWN.com. Just open up another browser. This is the guy we're talking to right now, and he's got new stuff coming out in just a few days. Actually, by the time this comes out, it'll be out tomorrow. So
There you go.
We're pushing this. We're pushing this. So when you listen to this is coming out tomorrow. Be one of the first ones to get it. Listen to it. Go to his website now. Go check it out.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, I wish you would.
So, as an independent artist, we are automatically, one thing, digital has made it easier for us to compete because it's hard to hide good music, right?
Right.
And but at the same time, we're not privy enough to the radio side of things to have much of a chance. So I like to tell people that, if you've got a radio station near you, they will have access to my song. As an independent artist, I'm not a major label artist. I chose not to ever go to a major label. That's just kind of been my thing. I'm too independent. I'm too wild anyway. Like I would probably drive a label crazy. So you can ask my publicist, they probably feel the same way, but they're good to me. And but if you call the radio station and you say, hey, can you play The Whiskey Makes Her Miss Me by Ansel Brown? And enough people start doing that, we can actually have something happen on radio that hasn't happened in a long time.
Yeah.
And I would love the help and support to do that, because my goal is to be a beacon of, I'm going to say this because it's in one of my song narrations that Peter Cullen did of Optimus Prime fame, a beacon of hope, and for all independent artists. And I think that's really what this part of my life is for.
I think that, right there, folks, call your local radio stations. Wait a few days. Wait till the song drops, and then flood your local radio stations. Flood.
They will have access to it, and it should be available to every radio station in the United States based on how we're doing the release. Our radio promotion actually starts on Monday the 16th.
Wow, I love it. I love it. I want to you talked about faith here recently, and that's such a huge part of my life. So thank you wholeheartedly for sharing that side of things. I want to talk a little bit about family with that, because you mentioned earlier that you have a YouTube channel with your daughter Sophia.
And seriously, Sophia, because we say that a lot.
Seriously, Sophia.
Seriously, Sophia. Seriously. Yeah, that's why she's.
It's such a great. And when you guys go to the YouTube channel, you'll see exactly why. It's just it's awesome. And if you parents that are listening to this, you will. I appreciate it. And again, those of you that listen to me and followed me over the last decade, know that little Bird is much older now. He's out of college. So when I see a father interacting with their kids. And this Seriously Sophia is the YouTube channel. Go check it out. It's very uplifting content, and it's just kind of like put the man aside of what he does for a career. And I think in this Ansel, I think it's great what you're doing with your music career, and I wish you all the best for that. But
Thank you.
let me say this first and foremost, as a father myself, this was awesome seeing just you being dad. It's so great to see dads be dads. You know, not what their job is or not what society expects them to be. It's just kind of putting everything aside and just being like, you know what, F it, I'm gonna be dad. This is what I'm here, and you're being present in the moment with that. I wanted to just share that real quick. Seriously, Sophia on YouTube. Let me ask you, what's it like creating content with your daughter on that?
Oh, I just listen and go. It's like you in the Army, man. You know, I get my orders and I do what I'm told. And it's pretty much it. As she gets older, she's getting more demanding.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
But you know, I tell her all the time that vulnerability is our superpower. You know, there's a reason why it's vulnerability, because it is a true ability. And as a dad, I think that's when we need to be our most vulnerable.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Of our kids.
No doubt. No doubt. I love that. Folks, you can check that out. We'll have a link for that as well.
Thank you.
I got another question for you in regards to family. About your mother. You mentioned your mother earlier in the show. There was an incident that happened. I'll let you kind of explain as much as you would like, but your mother's survival story was one of the most powerful ones that I've ever heard. How?
Yeah, they really,
you know, how
really.
is,
Oh, sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
how is her forgiveness or strength? How has that shaped you both as a man and as a songwriter?
Yeah. So again, that word vulnerability is a big part of that. My mom, was almost murdered in her high school, room after school, grading papers by a man in a skeleton mask and a ski suit. And I was, a young buck at the time.
Yeah.
And thought she was in a car accident because they didn't want to tell me what happened or tell us kids what happened at the time. And she ended up breaking a 12-inch dagger as he tried to stab her. I don't know if I can say that on YouTube. But and she was able to keep him from doing that. And then he started strangling. And by that point, she was losing consciousness, but she was getting she knew to get at his eyes and his face. And as she did that, she could see kind of the structure and the some of the details of his face. And then, talk about God, in our minds, or her mind, her dad, who had already passed, was there and kind of took this guy, picked him up by the collar and walked him out of the room. And then the door closed and it was locked and she was safe. He had cut all of her tendons in her hands. She had like 14 surgeries after the attack. Somehow she got my vivid memory is the window smeared with the red. They were these slot windows that open like this that you crank, those old windows. Somehow she got through that with no hands, jumped down to a roof, called for help, gave such a good description of the guy. They caught him in like 3 hours or an hour and a half or something like that. And I don't know all the details of that, but that's basically the timeline. And so the impact that I had was actually learning about, not seeing it in person, because I was not at the trial and I was not at the sentencing. But at the sentencing, she stood up after he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. She stood up, walked over to him. And this is my news account. I didn't see it in person. But this is what I read about. I don't even know where I read it, but I know I read it. She got up and she hugged him and she forgave him. So I have this history of, people have done me wrong. For some reason, I can't ever hold it against somebody. It's like, I get like, why did you go back to him and try to make up? Or why did you go back to him and try to have coffee and just make sure that there's something about that, what my mom did that's ingrained in me where I just can't let go of people. Like if I have somebody that's wronged me in my mind or in other people's minds, it's not the end of my story with that person because I feel like I can forgive almost anything, you know? And I like, that's just how I live now. That's because of my mom. And, you know, reading about that at the time when I was young and just knowing what she had gone through and like she hugged him and she forgave him. No ill will, no, like, why did you do this to me or not? And never hearing my mom ever complain about what she went through. Like, I don't remember ever hearing her, even through 14 surgeries and having her hand in liquid wax, you know, to, as she got, you know, the therapy for it. And I, to this day, I do not remember one time that my mom said, why me? I can't, like, there's nothing in my memory that she did that would say, like, you know, feeling sorry for herself or having to go through all this shit. And I, it's not there. And imagine what that does to me is it just made me believe that, like, you know, there are people that have it worse no matter what I go through. And my mom taught me that you never, one, you never give up on another person. And two, you never give up on yourself. And three, you know, your life goes on and you don't need to dwell on what happened. And that's what she did. She just didn't dwell on it. And it's like, I'm literally just thinking of this the first time in this interview that I never saw her ever. Now she may have done it in private and I just don't know, but I didn't see her cry about it. I didn't see her sulk about it. I didn't see her complain about it. I didn't see her having a bunch of night. Now she did have some night terrors. I do remember that, and that might be related to it. But
that's a strong
my
woman,
mom,
man.
my mom should be a movie because she just, like, nobody knows. We're just now as a family talking about this. We had not really talked about it in all those years.
And you know, you talk about faith, or we talked about faith, and what a example to set for your child or your kid. You know what I mean? I mean, to do that, because we're both godly men, you know,
Yeah.
and it's not our job to judge. I'm guilty of it. I've done it. I'm not proud to say it, but you know, I'm not perfect. None of us are.
Nobody is.
You know what I'm saying? But my goodness, to go through something like that, and that, man, well, I appreciate you sharing that. And so, how do you feel like that's where you've gotten a lot of your strength?
Yeah, my mom is definitely my hero. You know, I was lucky to have two good parents. You know, my dad wasn't always there, you know,
Yeah.
but I knew what he was doing. I knew he was working and, you know, doing his duty for his country. And, but talk about a heavyweight champ. It's my mom for sure.
That's cool.
I think my dad would be, you know, absolutely, totally agree.
Yeah.
She was the heavyweight champ for sure.
I love it. Well, let's dive into the, you know, you just mentioned your dad there, and you got, you know, I mentioned earlier that you were a military brat, is what we call them, in the community. So you grew up, you mentioned
Brat with a capital B.
Yeah. Your dad, you said 30 years in the Navy.
Yeah. 30 years in the Navy. And I think he probably, he retired in his mid 40s. So I think he probably, I've heard him regret it a few times that he was kind of in line to get into that admiral situation. And I think he wishes that he had maybe stuck it out, you know, and not chased, you know, some money.
Yeah, but I mean, 30 years. I mean, that's
yeah, like he was a stallion.
Like that's a unicorn nowadays.
Yeah, he was also a stallion, right? Is that what they call them? Stallions?
Yeah,
he served as enlisted.
Yeah. And
then he went to college.
Yeah, and became an officer.
Yep.
Or what we say in the Army side of it, like you're an enlisted guy and then you go to the dark side. That's how we refer to
Yeah, that
They're,
happens in private world too,
yeah.
if you're in a union job, for instance, and
Yeah,
you go
and
into
then you go,
management,
yeah,
it's
and then
like,
you're like,
what?
oh, you're one of those guys now. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But is that where you've always been a strong advocate for, the veteran community and obviously for faith-based causes. How do those values show up in your music and the way that you engage with your fans?
Yeah, again, vulnerability is kind of key, right? It's like on stage engaging, you got to show people who you are. And that's kind of what I love doing the most, is just being me. And I don't give a shit if, it's goofy. Like, if it's goofy, it's goofy. And, I've done things in my bands like, what the hell is he doing? And because that's what comes first for me. But I would say, being in the military, growing up in a family and moving everywhere and learning how to connect with new people everywhere that we moved, gave me an edge, man. It's given me an edge in my private business life, and it's given me an edge in my music life, because like nobody's not. It's I think everybody that I meet can be my friend.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
But that's a great way to be, though, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Especially nowadays with the way the world is, that's a mindset that's lost.
Yeah. And I think a lot of military brats have that ability. And so definitely, working with veterans and becoming friends with these veterans that I support with all of my heart and all of my soul. I've written for the veterans. I've performed for the veterans, and I hang out. That's the number one thing, is I hang out with the veterans. There. I am almost always around veterans.
You show up. That's what we say. You show up.
Yeah, I show up. And in fact, I did a Memorial Day event for the town of Mooresville this past Memorial Day. And one of the veterans that I've known for a long time, he came up to me, put his hand on my shoulder, tears in his eyes, and said, "Ansel, after all these years, you don't just support the vets. You're one of us." Yeah. And basically, making me his brother. Yeah. And like these Vietnam vets that I, primarily hang out with Vietnam vets, just been my thing. And they just, like, to a T, man, I went through a bad divorce, like messed me up in a lot of ways. And those guys, like, they told me back then, they said, "Ansel, we're behind you."
Yeah.
Anything you need.
Yeah. They pull you through.
Yep. And I got a taste of what it's like, veterans that stay by themselves or seclude themselves from other veterans. Man, it's a mistake. You got to be around your brothers and your sisters.
Say that again.
If you seclude yourself, you're making a mistake. You got to be around your brothers and your sisters, because they will have your back. No matter how you feel, no matter how disconnected you feel, no matter how much doubt you have in society, your brothers and sisters and people like me that support them are there for you, and you're missing out on that.
I'm going to say this, and this wasn't, I don't know if this certainly wasn't planned, but that message right there, for those of you that are listening, Ansel's music's coming out tomorrow. When you listen to this, it'll be out. June 13th is the drop date. Make sure you guys go to anselbrown.com. But the message that he just shared, what is June? June is mental health awareness month. This man here just dropped a huge nugget for all of you, and I hope you rewind it and listen to it as many times as you need to. Reach out. I just want to throw that out there real quick. AnselBrown.com, music dropping tomorrow, June 13th. The album is called Gravity, and I got another question. I got two more questions for you.
Shoot. Go ahead.
Looking ahead, what do you hope to take away from the next chapter of your music, and what's the legacy you hope to leave behind through Galaxy and beyond?
There you go. I like it. I love working with NASA, by the way. I have so much fun and so many memories with NASA. So that's why they're kind of ingrained in this relaunch. And that's why I'm calling it a relaunch, right?
Yeah,
Launch. So, But I think this time my main goal is to really, I don't think I performed enough the first time, if I'm honest. I was really good at marketing myself. I was really good at getting out and getting on radio and doing interviews and all that kind of stuff. But, I minimized the amount of shows that I did. And I don't know if that was because I was, involved with my family and just didn't want to do that. But this time I really have a desire to do as much performing as I can do.
Yeah.
But the other desire is to really help other artists that are just starting this journey so that I can help clarify to them, and they can, any of them can reach out to me, but I can clarify what I've learned for others who are doing the independent track, because you know what? Labels make a lot off of an artist. Mm-hmm. And if you sign a 30/70 deal or a 5.95 deal, this is a whole nother conversation, but you're pretty much going to be paying the label back your whole career. And, to me, with the digital age, we have the ability to get out on our own and do things our way. And not saying that I would never team up with a label. I'm just saying it's, to me, if you have the control, you can be who you are.
Right.
You don't have to be what everybody else wants you to be. And your music is your pathway to being who you are. That's pretty much my goal this time, is to be a light for independent artists and to really, like, at a deep level, connect with my fans.
I love that. Last question for you. You're on a show called The Decision Hour. You have to make decisions every day, right? Name a time in your life where your feet are on the line and you have to make that decision. What is it, and what's the atmosphere like at that time?
Man, God, there's been so many of those, though. Oh boy. I think this comeback is one of those decisions, because I spend a lot of time at night going, what the hell am I doing? This takes a lot of energy, and it takes, it's a young man's game. Honestly, yeah. It's a young man's game. And I'm sitting there at night going, what am I doing? How am I going to do this? And I had to, at some point, I was on that line, and I was saying, I'm stepping forward, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to give it my all, but I'm going to do it my way. And I'm going to keep my family involved, and I'm going to be loyal to those that have supported me and those who will support me, especially my family.
I love it.
And the veterans, of course.
I love it.
Because they are, honestly, if you meet veterans that know me, they treat me, they make fun of me. They tell you like it is. They don't give a shit who I am. They've humbled me a lot in my life.
Yeah.
And this time, you know what? It was like, I gotta do it, man. I gotta step forward, and I can't let my past and my hurts and my pains really keep me from doing this, because you only live once. And, I am not going to go through this. I'm not going to not go through this because there's a little bit of work involved.
Right.
It's going to be awesome. And it's going to be something that I'm proud that I went through with. And I'm there for my friends, and I can be there more for my friends as we grow this thing. There is so much of a difference I can make. People don't even know. Like, if you start getting a following, I don't want to be an activist or anything like that. I want to be there for people and really be there for the veterans, really be there for the kids. And, that's my goal. I'm going to do it.
Ansel Brown, folks. Open up another browser, go to anselbrown.com. Pay attention to what's going on. Music dropping here tomorrow, June 13th. Brother, appreciate you jumping on today.
And this is fun. I hope we can do it again.
Oh, we most certainly will. I guarantee it. Folks, that's all the time that we have. Again, anselbrown.com. We got it in the show notes below. Click on it. We'll have all of his information there. Also, before we let you go, make sure you check out our parent company, Heroes Media Group. Go to heroesmediagroup.com. New shows, new articles, And if you're a podcaster and author looking to join a family, we're right here for you. Reach out to us. Until next time, you've been listening to The Decision Hour.